Hello and welcome to the Beyond the Hustle podcast. My name is Lydia and I'm a mindset and business coach for high-achieving entrepreneurs. In this podcast, I share insights into how you can create a life of freedom, happiness, and personal fulfillment while increasing financial success way beyond what you have achieved with hustle alone so far. Plus, every other week, I interview inspiring and out-of-the-box thinking entrepreneurs. Have fun and enjoy. I'm super excited. Today, I have an interview with a lovely woman, with Elisabeth Villiger Toufexis. It is so funny. We met on Cyprus and we got to talk. She's actually originally from Switzerland and has been a travel guide, has traveled the world, and then met her husband on Cyprus and is now based on Cyprus. She's an NLP practitioner, a coach, and a hypnotherapist. And today I would just love to hear about you being a motivational speaker, about your experiences, obviously as a travel guide and just as a very inspirational woman. So welcome to the podcast today.
And you know, it proves once more that, first of all, the world is such a very small place and there is no coincidence ever.
Yeah, because we met on the tiny island of Cyprus. As you know, my parents live in Switzerland, or probably not all of you know, but my parents live in Switzerland. Now I meet her here. And also we both share the service of Florian, who does everything around the podcast, the whole cutting, all of that. So how tiny is the world that we meet here on Cyprus? Also just when we did like this little sea kayaking tour. So that was so funny.
Exactly. I know at the end of this kayak tour, we exchanged social media. And then I said to Lydia, how do you know Florian? And then she said, he's my podcast producer. So yeah, it's wonderful. Anyway, thank you so much for having me here today.
Yeah. And my first question today would be just a little bit more information, background on you, where you come from, what you do, what your mission is.
So I was born in a very small village in Switzerland, and I had a bit of a tough start because my mother was 16 when she gave birth to me. She wanted to give me up for adoption, and my grandfather was a good man. He took me home. So I grew up with my grandparents. They were old. My grandfather died when I was 10. So I was kind of alone, and I was bullied at school, you know, small Catholic village in Switzerland. And I was bullied for something that wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault that I didn't have any parents. And I was even bullied by a teacher. And I sometimes think, you know, if this happened today, that guy would be in jail. But of course, so many years ago, things were different. But you see, the thing about me is that I was very feisty. I knew what I wanted. I was planning my escape. I wanted to get away from that village. So I started working when I was 13.
Wow.
And the money that I made was for my language lessons because I wanted to leave. I wanted to see the world and I wanted to become a tour guide. I'm very stubborn as well. I'm a Capricorn. So I always get what I want, even if it takes 20 years. But it didn't take that long. I did a business school for 3 years because I needed to finish an education. And then I became a tour guide for 11 years and had the time of my life for these 11 years. Traveled all over the world, worked all over the world, met a lot of very cool people. Kissed a lot of frogs, as you say, you know. But during that time, met my husband, which brought me then at the end of these 11 years. I went back to Switzerland for a while, brought me to Cyprus. And I got married then. Actually, I got pregnant before I got married. So,
as it happens.
It happens, you know. So I brought up my kids here. They are both in Switzerland now. They're both grown up, 24 and 25 and a half. And when I was done with bringing up kids and being a tour guide, I felt like I had so much people's experience. When you are a tour guide, people trust you. They tell you all their stories. And you're this neutral person who listens to them. And this person, you don't know the people that they have problems with. So they unload. So I knew that I had the knowledge, but I needed tools. So I trained as a tour guide. I went to Dubai. I trained with a very good coaching institute, which is called the Robert Simic Coaching Institute. And I actually became a master hypnotherapist, master NLP practitioner, and started working as a coach. And then wrote my book. During that time, the same time, I also worked as a conference interpreter. I worked for the Cypriot police for 15 years and traveled with them. And while I was traveling, I was used to be bored on planes or in airports. I wrote this book because I had all this knowledge and I wanted to get it out. And that's how the Soul Kit was born. The Soul Kit was born on planes and in airport lounges. Yeah, and this is how it all happens. Then I wanted to do more speaking. I found the Global Woman Club, again, by chance, or as we know, and you know, when you know what you're looking for, the opportunity appears, and then you take the opportunity. I found the Global Woman Club, and I became the Global Woman Director in Cyprus, and then I also took over New York, and here we are. This is more or less my life in a nutshell.
In like some sentences, yeah, and it's so inspiring. And obviously, I would love to talk for hours with you and get like all your stories. But I will also put the link to your podcast where you share lots of travel stories into the show notes so that people can obviously hear all the stories. But some of them I would like to hear today. So perhaps the next question would be around, what you already touched a little bit on, what you're looking for, then the opportunity shows up. When did you become aware of that? Because many people, they have challenges, it's always about the challenge and things don't work out. And just a few people manage to get to the other side and say, hey, life presents opportunities. So share a little bit more about that, please.
Well, I had a very interesting experience because, I was telling you before, I had planned my escape. I went abroad. I left that village that I didn't like and the people that I didn't like. But you see, the problem is that I had very low self-esteem, even though I didn't show it. I never showed it. I was this long-legged blonde, who pretended to be on top of the world, but I wasn't. I had low self-esteem, and I was, when you leave, you still take your problems with you. By changing a place, you don't change your personality or the way you feel. But when I was 29 and I was working in Florida, you always used to take my clients to a shopping mall. And I used to walk around. They had time to eat. And I went to a bookshop and I picked up this book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. And I went to my hotel, dropped off my clients, went to my room, and I started reading this book. And I couldn't stop reading. Because we're talking about 1989. People were not talking about personal development so much. And I didn't know that I had a subconscious mind. So that was a real eye-opener. And funny enough, about 2 months later, 3 months later, I was in LA between two trips, waiting for the next tour group to arrive. I had time. I was bored walking around the hotel in one of those crappy holiday inns somewhere in Long Beach. And I didn't want to go sightseeing because that was my job. And I was looking what's happening in the ballrooms, what conferences are on. And I saw this sign saying public speaking seminar. And I thought, yeah, that's what I do. I'm a public speaker as a tour guide. So I walked into this room, and I still don't know up until today if I actually paid for this seminar. And guess who the person who presented the seminar was? It was Tony Robbins. And he was a freak. I mean, Tony Robbins and I are the same age. He was 29. And it was the beginning. He had just written Unlimited Power. I bought his book. And, I sometimes think I would have loved to have a selfie with Tony Robbins. But in 1989, we had no cell phones. Yeah. This was it. This was my eye opener. And this is when I realized that when you set goals, because then you know what you want. There's a place in your brain called the reticular activating system that filters out what you are interested in, and you find the opportunities, and then you have to grab them. Because one of the problem with opportunities is that many people they see them, they may even notice them, some don't notice them, but they don't take them.
Yeah. So what would you think, going back to where you grew up and how you grew up? Because again, then you already decided I'm a survivor. I'm going to get out there. Why? Why would you say? Because so many people stay victims to how they were brought up and all of that. Is it perhaps some genes you had, or why do you think that happened, that you were a person who got out?
I don't know. That I really don't know. I was just a fighter, and I still am. And, even though I have worked through all those low self-esteem things, and deep down, there are still times, these some of those things, they stay with you. I still feel left out. But then, of course, I correct myself and I say, hey, stop it, because you're fine. You're very included in many places. But I think life is just a constant development journey. It's a journey. And that's why I called my podcast Most Memorable Journeys, because even though I'm talking about traveling, I don't only want to talk about traveling. I want to talk about the journey of life, because it's a journey. And I think it's so important to enjoy the journey without being so focused on the destination, because you may end up somewhere else anyway.
Yeah, that's so true.
I can't answer your question. I don't know. I was just a feisty little thing, I wasn't going to. And to be honest, these people who bullied me, what I was saying before, I'm so grateful for them, because they gave me the fuel to go and do what I did. And there was an article about me in a newspaper in Switzerland 2 summers ago. It's like a local newspaper, and talking about me and what I did. And because I had just become the Global Woman Director of the Year, and I thought, there you are, because I thought when I left, I'll show you, So, yeah, but I really don't know. I think it's partly genes, but it's a lot of willpower, because the mind is a muscle. You have to work on it all the time.
So true. So true. Okay, you were a travel guide, but you still worked for the Swiss company there. When did you shift then into becoming an entrepreneur, basically? And that was after the kids, or how was that shift?
I had another business between becoming a coach. I had 2 shops here in Cyprus. I imported wooden toys from Germany. Good quality wooden toys. When my kids were small, I couldn't do anything, or I didn't want to do anything related to travel, because I wanted to be here, which was tough because I was 35 when I had my first child. So it wasn't so easy to suddenly be stuck, but it was worth it. I would do it again, because it's nice to see your kids grow up. Mm. But I needed to do something, because I had always been working. So staying at home wasn't an option. So I opened these shops, and I started importing these toys, but I hadn't studied the market properly, because the Cypriots don't really like wooden toys. They like plastic, big boxes and colors. So I had some good clients, and I sort of went through, 4 or 5 years. I never made any money. Always kind of survived. I never paid myself a salary. And then I realized, this is beginning to look like occupational therapy. So
I love that.
Closed the one shop. And it was also at the time when the police had started asking me to go on trips. So I actually managed to sell my other shop. One I closed, the one in Limassol I closed, but I sold the shop in Nicosia for exactly the amount of money that I owed the bank. So
isn't that funny? Isn't that an amazing coincidence again?
So case closed, and I was very relieved. However, sometimes it would have been worth waiting a little longer, because that was before all the Russians were here. It was at the beginning of it was 1999 to 2004, and that's when they started coming, and the Russians loved this stuff. But anyway, live and learn.
Live and learn, and you started many other amazing things. And because you I could go into any direction, but because you touched on it, with having sold your company for the exact amount that you owed to the bank, a little bit around money mindset. You obviously had to build yourself from the ground up, and now you're a successful entrepreneur. What was your road to money? Okay, you come from Switzerland, so it's a country of money, but still, share some thoughts on money and entrepreneurship and money mindset.
Yeah, all Swiss are rich.
Of course, all of them.
I was born very, very poor. My father never recognized me, but he was taken to court to pay, what do you call it? You don't call it maintenance, whatever. It's support, child support. He never paid, and it was a struggle. And I could see from a very young age how horrible it is when you have no money. And I thought, that's never going to happen to me. That's why I started working. When I was 13, I went to a ski lodge in the winter, and I cleared tables. In these self-service restaurants, people leave the stuff on the table. I was clearing tables. And in the summer, I went to a hotel and I cleaned rooms. And then I just always worked. And I also learned that it's important to put some money on the side. When I started working with my tour company at the time, the first one was Air Tour Swiss, our salary wasn't big. But we had a meal allowance, our apartment was paid, and we had some commission on the excursions. So if we were a little careful, we could save the salary in Switzerland. And when I was 25, after I had worked a few summers and winters continuously, I suddenly had 35,000 francs saved on my bank account in Switzerland. And that was sort of the beginning. I thought, yeah, because you see, people say money is bad. People, rich people are horrible. I love money. I love money because money gives you freedom. Money gives you the opportunity to help somebody. That's one thing. Money gives you the opportunity to outsource stuff. Money gives you the opportunity to do nice things. And in my case, it's traveling, one of my hopes for my podcast, because our podcasts cost money, but they are worth it. But I'm hoping, for example, that because of my podcast, I may get upgraded in business class, things like that. So money is important and money is good. And of course, it always depends what you use it for. If you're in the Russian mafia, that's a different story. But in our everyday life, and especially also when you have children, there is nothing worse than being able to tell your children, you cannot do this because we don't have any money. You should never say that anyway, because that's a very bad conditioning for them in the future. But of course, I'm not saying that you have to give your children anything they want. That's a different story. But to be able to give your kids a good education is a lot of freedom. And money is freedom for me. And it's good to be careful, not to be stingy. There's nothing worse, again, than people who are stingy. To be generous with yourself and with other people, but to save always a little bit, steadily.
I love that you said to be not compassionate, but, be good to yourself and others, because also so many people just extend this, be generous. You said be generous, extend this graciously to others, but not to themselves. So I love that you bring both into it. And I can fully sign all the points you made of putting money on the side or whatever people do, invested, and see it positively, how much freedom it gives and how much you can impact other people with that. And what would you see, because you obviously work with a lot of people as well on different topics, when it is around money, what have you come across being some of the most limiting beliefs in people around money?
There are people who, first of all, many people spend money on the wrong things. We don't have to have everything. And I think especially this situation with COVID has taught us that we can live with very little. And there is a say, what is it? We buy things with money that we don't have to impress people that we don't like.
Yeah.
So, what's the point? And this is the worst that we can do anyway, compare ourselves to other people. We don't have to have the same car like other people. It's nice to have a nice car. Me personally, I absolutely don't care what car I have. Whereas my husband, for him, cars is the most important thing. So I think it's important to understand where to spend your money, invest in yourself. Learn, depending on what you will do in your life, maybe learn another language that will help you get a promotion in your job, or have a coach, like somebody who can open up your money blockages, because many times our mind is blocked with things that happened in our childhood. Very well, because you're also trained in this, we get conditioned in the first 6-7 years of our lives, and whatever is stored in our subconscious mind that we have heard from our parents or from the people who brought us up is there. And sometimes that doesn't help us at all. That blocks us from getting where we want. And of course, also the worst feeling that you can have continuously is fear. Because fear is really a dream killer. Fear is the place where our dreams die, and when I say invest in yourself, do something different, leave the comfort zone. Because again, the comfort zone is the place where our dreams die. That's just where we are, where nothing ever happens. So what I notice with people very often is that they have the wrong mind about money. They don't think that money is good, and also be generous again in your mind. Be happy for people who have money and ask them, how did you do it? Instead of being jealous or envious and watching people do all this fun stuff, ask them, because people who are successful love to share. Nobody's ever going to say, no, I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about myself. People love to talk about themselves.
Exactly. Why do you think I'm talking to you?
There you go. The childhood stuff, definitely. And also like the remark you made in the beginning, watch what you tell your kids. If you constantly tell your kids or other people around you, with that, you also tell it to yourself and all the people around you. I don't have money. I don't want to spend it. It's too much. This is, you are doing subconscious programming on your kids and on yourself day in, day out. So this is where you really can start. Yeah. And you mentioned fear. Many people living in fear, and that being the silent dream killer, so to say. And I would love to hear a little bit more from your travels. And obviously, that's like, at least from my experience, a constant, not extension, but like growing of your comfort zone. Like you're stepping out of your comfort zone constantly when you're traveling, at least in my eyes. So share, what have been some challenges when you think about your travels experiences, and how did you overcome them? Perhaps 2 or 3 big things. We talked about this. You have been traveling in a time when we didn't have smartphones, just phones where you had to put the coins in and write letters and stuff. Like you started traveling in a very different time. So share a little bit about the challenges and how you overcame them, or how they helped you grow.
Well, some of them I didn't overcome, but that's okay.
That's okay too.
No, as you say, it was so different. It was so different. When I got my first job as a tour guide in Rhodes in Greece, and I was too young to work for a Swiss tour operator. As I said before, I was stubborn. I just wanted to go. So I found this local agent, and it was a horrible experience, really, because we were so underpaid. And we worked. I didn't even know what I had signed up for. I had spoken to this guy on the phone, and I traveled with 2 suitcases to Greece. I shared an apartment with 3 other people, 3 other tour guides. And I used to go to the airport at 6 o'clock in the morning. And then I did the evening excursion until 1 or 2 in the morning. Just worked 6-7 days a week. That was my toughest season. And I think that also taught me that being protected by a Swiss company, because then my next year I was employed by a Swiss company and things were very different. Everything was organized. At the place, I had a flat on my own. I had a car. No, the first season I didn't have a car. I had a moped. But things are very different. I don't think anybody who is young today would do what I did, because I didn't really have so many expectations and I didn't have any demands. I was just so glad that I got this job that I was more or less willing to accept nearly anything. I also, as I said, at that time, I still had very low self-esteem. I was just happy to be there. But when I look back, that was slave trading. So that season just formed me, and so many things happened during that time that taught me a lot of things. So it was a good experience. So I did not overcome anything. I just allowed it to happen and learned from it and never allowed it later on again. And of course, then there were other things like going to work in the Maldives. I remember that was my first long distance destination, my first long distance flight ever. And it's so funny in your mind. On the way flying to the Maldives, I started getting homesick, even though I had been away for 5 years already. But I was just feeling that I'm so far away. I couldn't call my grandmother because, these calls, when you hear each other talk, making phone calls was so expensive at the time. After I had spent like $50 on a phone call where we hadn't spoken, I thought, no, I'm not going to call again. I'm going to start writing letters. We had a company mail coming in every week from on the charter plane. So I just received and sent letters at the time. And also another funny thing in the Maldives was we had a local agent. There was only one phone on the island where I lived. And that was in the office. And my agent had a telex. Maybe you know what a telex is, but many people don't. Young people don't know.
No, I don't know anymore.
Or a fax. It was a communication machine. You were typing things and somebody else on the other side of the world could read it. My local agent used to receive telexes from my company in Switzerland. And he used to call me on that one phone on the island. And they would call me from snorkeling or sailing or somewhere. So I used to walk into this office in the Maldives, dripping with a towel around me, getting the phone call. And he would read me this telex and I didn't understand the word because he had such a bad accent that I actually had to then take a boat for an hour to go to Male to listen, to read the telex that was sent. Now, I don't know if that answers your question because you were asking me to overcome things. I don't know.
Or grow with them, not overcome, but grow.
Exactly. I was just going to say, you grow and you learn, and things that you allow at some point in your life, you would never allow later on because you've learned. And I think that's very important to learn your lesson. And some people never do. They make the same mistakes over and over and over again because a mistake is not a mistake as long as you don't give up or as long as you learn from it. If you just continue doing it, then it's really silly.
So what else did help you grow through traveling? So we heard the Maldives story, of course, the difference when it comes to communication, the homesickness. Just because I think there is a wealth of things to be taught from traveling. Is there some more you could share?
Traveling just showed me and still shows me up until today that the more you go and the further you go, you understand that we are all the same. We're all the same people. We all have the same needs. We want to be safe. We want to be happy. And I was just recently in Jordan. We were in Petra and walking up to this monastery and I was exhausted. So I sat down. I couldn't take it anymore. I sent my friends up and expected them to come back. And there was this woman having this kiosk, these hustlers who try to sell you souvenirs and bracelets and things. And she said to me, "Hey, lady, come and have a tea." And I thought, oh, no, I don't want to go. She's going to try and sell me things. But I did. I thought, why not? Why do you always have to think, something negative? So I went and sat with this woman. She made me a tea on a fire because there was no electricity or anything. And we started talking. And we started talking about our kids because she has kids who are also studying. We started talking about what she cooks because she loves to cook and she has an Instagram and she shows all her food. We started talking about her Airbnb, which she has in Petra. And we just started talking as women, two women with the same needs and not exactly the same interests, but at the end, when you start talking to somebody that we are all the same, and that traveling helps you become more tolerant. It helps you understand other religions, other cultures, because there are so many misunderstandings when it comes to especially religion. And I know where we are here in Cyprus, we are surrounded by countries which have Islam and they are such beautiful people. But because of the whatever happened, I don't know, 9/11 and so on and so forth, people have a total misconception of that religion. And I always say that if there was no politics and no religion, this place here where we are, Cyprus, Syria, Israel, Lebanon, Turkey, they're all the same people with this beautiful sense of hospitality, with this beautiful food. And they are all this, it's the same mentality, but it's politics and religion that separate us. And I don't like it.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Traveling opens your mind and it makes you a more tolerant person. It makes you a much more beautiful person.
I love that. And I agree wholeheartedly. You started sharing in the beginning that you started to work very early on, long hours. You built your life all by yourself, like coming from a very, very poor background, very, low background, so to say. And I obviously, like, the name of the podcast now is Beyond the Hustle. So it is obviously catered to people who are used to work a lot and now want to shift gear and find a way of impacting even more people, but without burning themselves out and, like, going crazy. Because this is the main mentality in the Western world, as we probably agree on. So you are still very, very active, as I can see, but you also mentioned words like surrender, like sometimes it's not about pushing against, it really is about learning the lesson and things and moving on. And probably also experiencing from traveling, very often you cannot plan it and make it work. It's very much about flow and surrender. So what are your thoughts on this idea of beyond the hustle and not forcing everything and wanting to push to achieve now that you're older and not in your teens and 20s anymore, where you worked like crazy?
Definitely beyond my teens and 20s. Look, I think that when you love what you do, it doesn't really matter how long that then it's not a hustle. And I love what I do. I was just at this exhibition where we met that over the weekend. I mean, I could do 100 other things on the weekend, but I love these things. I love connecting with people, talking to people, and of course, doing business. As I said, I love money. I love traveling business class, and that costs. So, but I think also you don't have to be everywhere. That's another thing that is important when you don't want to be to hustle so much. I think it's also choosing your battles, choosing what you want to do, understanding what is really important, and understanding what is really important to you and not to other people or to the society. That you choose what you want to do, you choose where you want to go. And just because every Tom, Dick, and Harry goes there doesn't mean that you have to go there as well. And enjoying, really finding something that you love, because when you do what you love, it's not work. I don't really do Saturdays or Sundays. Sometimes we are speaking here on a Monday morning and I'm still in my pajamas. So
because we don't do a video interview.
Thank God. It's about loving. It's really, really about loving what you do and choosing well. And doing it, taking action, because setting goals and sitting on the sofa and waiting for something to happen is not working. It's having a dream, breaking it down in goals, taking action, deciding what can I do right now to get a little bit closer to that goal. And maybe it even happens it takes 10 years, but you can start today.
So true, especially if focusing on what you want. And again, not letting the opinion of what others think interfere, and really figuring out what I want and focusing on that.
Yeah, because we are very often driven by, especially with social media, people who are insecure and they see all these people having all this fun, and they because it's so, people don't put stuff that doesn't make them happy. A lot of it is a lie. People lie a lot on social media. So don't believe everything that you see, and never compare yourself to other people, because you have no idea what goes on in their lives.
That's one of the biggest learnings for me as well. Yeah. Just does not make sense to compare yourself to others. It's just, does not make sense.
No.
What would you say, obviously, if you want to share a little bit about that, is there some things where you would say that was a failure? I learned from that. If you could turn time around, you would have done differently. Is there some things like that?
Yeah, this is this question comes up a lot, and I use it too. And at the end of the day, I think, no, you become the person you are because of what happened. If everything was, for example, for me, if everything had been so easy, I wouldn't be who I am now. We need things. I think it's about using those obstacles as stepping stones. That's a nice way to put it. I haven't invented it. I read it somewhere, but because everything that stops you, you have a choice. There is your choice. You can say, oh, I'm giving up. I can't do that. These things for me are a challenge. The more people tell me that it's not possible, the more driven I am to actually do it, because anything is really possible. Now, failure, lots of failure, like my shops. I mean, as I said, but then again, my kids always had beautiful toys. They always had beautiful gifts to bring to birthday parties. I also learned that I will never want to have a shop in my life again. So there's your learning. But no, I don't know. I don't think I would do anything different. Maybe I would be a little bit more, I would be even more generous to myself. In my 20s, I was a bit more driven, focused on saving a bit more. And many times when I was in a beautiful place, maybe I didn't do this extra trip because I didn't want to spend any more money. I think being generous to yourself within reason is important.
So that could be a nice reminder for people who are just starting out to take the extra trip and be almost like, take care of saving, take care of investments, but don't miss out on life while doing it, because we don't know if we are still here tomorrow. So,
exactly. Nobody knows.
Yeah. And because you already mentioned it, what are things that challenge you? It could be people, it could be a personal character trait. What are things, that challenge you?
That challenge me or that annoy me?
Whatever. Can be both. Always interesting.
Like people who, and that is, you see, we say that what annoys you in other people is usually something that you have to process within yourself, isn't it? So, sometimes people annoy me who don't know what they want, who are, because, and I don't think that is,
I feel you.
I know what I want. So maybe that's not always true, that you process that there's something inside of you. What challenges me now at this point of my life is my age. Because, you get to the point where I'm very well. I turned 60 last year and I'm very fit. You've seen me kayaking. So
yeah, you overtook me.
But, it's not going to always be like that. And it's not so easy when you've been really, really active. And I'm having a very active life. And I'm hoping to have a very active life for many, many more years. But I think this is my biggest fear, because when you're older, for example, when you stop moving, I know that when you stop moving, that's it. People who start sitting on the sofa only are the people who really, I have a personal trainer and she always says motion is lotion. So it's important to move. But, one of the fears is if you ever fall and you break something, which is more likely when you're older, you wouldn't be able to move for a while. So that would stop you from being so active. So my challenge at this point in my life is to really stay healthy and stay well. And to do anything possible, to do all my sports and healthy in my mind as well. Because it's not just about your body. Your mind is a muscle as well that needs to be trained all the time. So that's my challenge. Of course, for somebody who is young, there are different challenges. And I think that's another thing. It's important to find your individual challenge and work on it.
And at the same time, it's super nice because I think you're actually... And that's super nice. My oldest podcast interview guest until now, which is amazing because you're really a very inspirational person, like what you have achieved. And as you said, like the health you enjoy now and what you keep doing in your age, other people prepare for getting out of their jobs and sitting at home, basically. So it's very, very interesting and helpful to get the elder voices in here as well, because so many people, when they're in their 30s, usually people here around late 20s, 30s, 40s, you still have all like physical, it's still all there and you forget about it to actually start taking care of it. Because, as you said, you have, like I have parents which are 80 or who are 80 and 82 and they go for a walk every freaking day. And if I skip it for a day, okay, but the older you get, it is important. And I think you have to, again, train your mind early for that. It's not something when you're 70 and then, oh shit, doesn't work anymore. Then it's kind of late. We start with that beforehand. So it's a beautiful reminder that money, all of that is nothing without health.
Oh, totally. And, something can happen to you at any age. This is another thing that we take for granted. As long as everything is fine, we take it for granted. And I'm a very big gratitude freak. I believe that the feeling of gratitude is the best feeling that you can have. And also, that your brain releases serotonin when you are grateful, which is a happiness hormone. Appreciate, there is this thing when you have a roof over your head and food in your fridge and running water and electricity and a little money in your bank account, you are part of 8% of the world. 8. But we take all these things for granted. And here in Cyprus, funny enough, sometimes when we have no water, when we have droughts and they close the water for a while, how many times do you open the tap? And then you realize that there is no water because you always take it for granted. And I think mindfulness is not some new age BS. Mindfulness is very important, to always be mindful of how you eat, what you think, what you do. And it doesn't have to be, this voodoo, whatever. I'm a very practical person. I'm not, this so very spiritual, but I believe in energy. I believe that whatever you give out comes back. I know that when you have low energy thoughts, when you have these feelings of jealousy or anger, or you're on a low vibration and you attract low vibrations. I don't even know why did I start talking about this?
I was so fascinated listening to you that it's also like, oh, whatever, just keep going.
So, and no, we were saying it doesn't have really much to do with age. Of course, the thing is that when you get older, you start realizing that your time is limited. When you are younger, your time may be limited as well, but you don't know it. So mindfulness and understanding that you never, ever know what's going to happen to you is important, and appreciating. And it doesn't have to be all the time. I understand that people who are 25, of course you live and you have fun and you do crazy things. But when you get to a certain age that you start realizing, yes, I'm grateful for everything I have, for everything I'm experiencing, and for my beauty. I love my life. I have a very beautiful life. And I hope that I have a lot more to do because I have a lot of plans.
And this also keeps you young and going. I again see this in my parents, long plans. And that keeps you active in your mind. Desires, if there are desires, want to be expressed, then there is a reason for you to stay alive, to express them, so to say. When I was listening to you and you talking about your experience, your full life, your rich life and all of that, of course, and then into health. And of course, what came to my mind was that I'm like sitting across to a very inspirational woman. And I would like perhaps some more thoughts around being a woman and being entrepreneurial, even though you were employed in the beginning, but you were a free spirit. How was your experience being a woman in a world where business also is still very much more dominated by men? And also now being a speaker, being an author, being a renowned coach, all of that. How is your experience as a woman from a feminine perspective, so to say, a female perspective?
I've got a lot of experience with that through the Global Woman Club as well, because I'm the director here in Cyprus. Personally, I've never really had a bad experience because I'm a woman. Maybe because I had to learn it the hard way, because I had to fight when I was young. And basically, I don't know if I'm saying it, I learned not to take any shit. So, but I know from experience and all the women that I work with, especially within the Global Woman community, that one of the most important things for women is financial freedom, because so many women would do something different, or they wouldn't even be with their husbands anymore if they were financially free. And for a young woman who, love is a beautiful thing, but it does wear off after a while. When you depend financially on somebody, when you get this, it becomes this power game and you have to beg for everything that you want to do. That isn't good. So my advice to every young woman, save money, work. Even if it's a little bit, you don't have to. I respect anybody who does anything. I respect somebody who wants to work full time, who is in a relationship and the work is shared and you can get help for your kids. That's another thing. There is no shame in not always being there. There is people will judge you whatever you do. People will judge you if you're home because you don't want to do anything. People will judge you if you work all the time. So do whatever feels good, but save a little money and keep working on yourself. So you will have the opportunity when your kids are grown, in case you don't work, that you can start something new. Always be financially free. And it doesn't mean that you have to be, you have to earn more than your husband, but be financially free and also be good to yourself. Look after yourself, do what you like, have a massage, go on a girls' trip, so many things. Because it's not that men, this is one thing that I'm the director of a global woman club, but I love men. I love working with men. And I worked a lot with men when I was translating for the police. Men are not bad. It's not like this image that women's organization are, it's not a fight against each other. We are in this together. And when we are in this together, we can move mountains. But especially financial freedom and having something to do and not just working for the family are important.
Oh, I like that. I like that very much. And I think many, many people need to hear this. And since we are nearing the end of our interview time, I would just love some last thoughts by you. You obviously have given us lots of nuggets of gold on all different topics. Just something you want to share with the audience, something you want to, some last mindset tips, practical tips, whatever you want to share.
I think one of the most important things in life is to love life. When you love life, life will love you back. Mm. And that's got to do with energy, because when you give out good energy comes back. And, there's these few things that I already mentioned. Never compare yourself to other people because you have no idea what goes on in their lives. And always recognize opportunities. I don't know if we have another 2 minutes. I'm going to tell you a quick story about opportunities, because when my kids were relatively small still, I started working. Somebody found me. I started working for the Cypriot police. And I used to go to the station to translate sometimes when they had somebody who spoke German or French or something. And this one night, there was this higher officer who was walking around. And he saw me and he said to me, I'm the president of the Cyprus Police Association, and I go to a conference once or twice a year, and I always take an interpreter with me. Would you be interested in that? And I always say yes. You always have to say yes. Because you can think about it afterwards. You're not signing anything, but just say yes. So I thought this guy is just flirting with me. It was like, 16, 17 years ago. I looked a lot different then. And I thought, he's never going to call me. And funny enough, about 2 weeks later, I got a call from his secretary, and he asked me if I could go to Poland to a conference with him. And I thought, Jesus, what am I going to do now? I had never done this before. I had never translated Greek. Like one-to-one, so I thought, what am I going to do? The kids were small. They needed to be driven to school. And I called my husband and I said, what shall I do? And my husband said to me, you have to go because otherwise they're never going to call you again. This is why I love my husband, because that's when you get supported. And I did. And I went and I had a wonderful time. I had no idea what I was doing at the beginning. Nobody noticed. I met Lech Walesa. Whoever knows who Lech Walesa is, he was the president of Poland, and he's actually very operative in the fall of communism. I started going at the beginning once or twice a year. And at the end, in between 2015 and 2018, one of the Cypriot men became president of the European Police Association, and we traveled every other week. So it was a fantastic experience going all over Europe. And if I had said no that night, I would have never experienced that. So say yes. That's my tip. Always say yes.
And I love that. Thank you, especially because you said you're not signing anything. Like, start with yes. And then, as you said, you asked your husband, say yes and then see. Then the next step comes, basically. I love that. It's very freeing. Thank you. And I would say what I'm going to share in the show notes from you is obviously the podcast and the book you mentioned. What was the name again?
The Soul Kit. I have a website called thesoulkit.com because I've got some other books. Some books are ebooks, and I've got some courses as well. Yeah. And I can send it to you.
Yes. So all of that will be in the show notes for you. Make sure to connect with Elisabeth. She's an amazing connector. And again, say yes.
Always say yes. Say no to drugs.
Yeah, okay. There are sometimes you can say no. No, of course. But I think last thought on that, I was discussing that with a friend recently, the say yes, say no. We had such an important topic in society in general, like especially for women to say no, but we forgot about the power of saying yes too. So I think it's amazing that you just brought this in, because we were so focused on like saying no, having boundaries, that we totally forgot about that we always need both. So saying yes can be the key to whatever for so many people. New opportunities, basically.
Yeah, because when you say no, you close all doors.
Yeah.
That's what I taught that my kids. When you want something, all you have to do is ask. You have a 50% chance of a yes. If you don't ask, you have a 100% chance for a no.
So true. Mm-hmm. Oh, Elisabeth, thank you so much for your time. And I'm looking forward when we do the next sea kayaking trip or whatever comes up here on Cyprus.
Absolutely. I went twice this year. I had never kayaked before. I love it. And let's go again soon.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yes, and thank you so much for having me as your guest. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure indeed. Did you like this podcast episode? Then please share it with people who you know could benefit from it. Also, I would be super grateful if you could leave me a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. It would mean such a lot to me. If you want to stay connected with me, please join my Telegram channel for daily mini reminders around mindset, business growth, investing, and living life to the fullest. Or message me directly on Instagram or LinkedIn. You will find all the links in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and until the next episode. Much love, Lydia.